Hi, everyone, and welcome to your Virginia Department of Veterans Services training. Our objectives for right now is just to understand 201 Virginia's role in answering these VDVS calls. We also want to learn about the programs that are available through the VDVS, as well as know how to handle these calls. So for starters, during the day when individuals call Virginia Department of Veterans Services, it's normally answered by veterans that work there for the department. But come 5 o'clock, when they all go home, those calls start to route to 211 Virginia. So when we get those calls, what we try to do is assist this veteran or this family member of a veteran with whatever their need is, using both Get Care as well as our understanding of the VDVS programs. Now, in exchange for that, we get funding from VDVS, which is why it's so important for us to be marking these calls when we speak to veterans or active military individuals or their family members, because we're letting them see how many records we've recorded where we've helped someone from their line or someone that is a veteran that wasn't connected with them previously. As you can see, even on their Virginia Veterans Resource Guide that's provided, we are there front and center in the middle of a page. So we've got complete view for all veterans that get this resource guide that 211 is here and that this is what we're here for. This is why individuals that are veterans may call 211 rather than it being some after hours routing through VDVS. So we're getting seen by them, and in exchange, they're funding us for helping. What is VDVS? Well, this is the Virginia Department of Veterans Services, and it hosts several different individual programs and departments, kind of the same way that the Council of Community Services hosts several independent departments, and 211 Virginia is just one of those. Now, to be clear, the state support that goes to the Virginia Department of Veterans Services is not the same thing as what people get when it's the federal level United States Department of Veteran Affairs. And you'll sometimes hear this referred to as the VA. So when we say VA, we're talking about that federal level of the United States Department of Federal Affairs, but it's not the same as the Virginia Department of Veterans Services. Absolutely, they work together, but we just want to make sure that that's clear before we continue. When it comes to eligibility for these individuals, a lot of the times for the federal and the state, it's really just based on how they were discharged from the active military. If they retired or they left because they had finished serving their time, that's fine. Unfortunately, if they left through a dishonorable discharge, they probably are not going to qualify for these services. Now, when we talk about active service, that's any full-time service. So it doesn't really matter the branch of the military that they were part of: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and even, the reserves could be eligible for these benefits. Men and women veterans are also treated the same based on their service history. So they should be getting the same federal and the same state benefits if they've served the same amount of time, let's say. So just like we talked about with the council having multiple departments, the departments of VDVS kind of break into 7 service delivery areas. The first is benefits, followed by veterans education. Then there's transition and employment, care centers, the veteran cemeteries, the Virginia War Memorial, and lastly, the veteran and family support. So let's go into it and talk about what each of these different service delivery programs are about. We'll begin with benefits services. Now, benefits services handles anything that veterans of the armed forces or their dependents need when it comes to accessing the either federal or state veteran benefits. And they actually have 34 service offices throughout the state where they can help these individuals. And this is free assistance no matter what they're helping them with if they're connected to a benefits service office. So if your caller needs help with health benefits, disability compensation, your VA pensions, survivor benefits, any claims or appeals, or even education benefits, all of that is provided through the 34 benefit services offices. Now, to be clear, regarding the disability compensation, this is not the same thing as the Social Security disability income that some of our callers receive. Disability compensation through the military is not the same thing as SSDI. So you want to make sure you're finding out from your caller which type of disability they're talking about. If they're a veteran, most likely it's going to be through benefit services that they need to contact. So when you're in GAT Care, your keyword is going to be benefits assistance. And you're going to look for the listing that specifically says the Virginia Department of Veteran Services as the agency. One of the things to keep in mind when we're trying to help individuals get programs through DSS or Common Help, we're looking up the keyword benefits screening. So just be sure to remember that this is benefits assistance. And we want to get that Virginia Department of Veteran Services listing and not the one that says United States Department of Veteran Affairs or the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And the reason being is that the benefits assistance that they're going to get from VDVS will connect them to any of their federal benefits they've earned. The next program talks about veterans education, transition, and employment. Now, this program works to make sure that individuals have the opportunity to reach their fullest potential. So it's going to focus on, you guessed it, education, training for jobs, and employment. This directorate kind of works to make sure that they have access to their GI Bill, any kind of licensure they may need. There's what's called a V3 certified employer, who is an individual that specifically seeks out veterans to employ, as well as any of the colleges and universities that will be doing the education piece. Now, while it's not important to memorize all of the agencies listed here that are under the directorate, but it's important to see that there's agencies for education and training. There's military survivors and dependents education. The V3, which we mentioned a second ago, is the Virginia Values Veterans Program. Veteran Transition Assistance Program for our active military that are moving into veteran life. And then finally, Military Medics and Corpsmen Program. And that focuses on healthcare, but you don't have to necessarily be continuing healthcare within the military. And it could be a family member that wants to get into the field of healthcare. All of this is found under Veterans Education, Transition, and Employment Directorate. So if your caller needs education support, employment assistance, any kind of training, including that medical training or transition assistance, here's your keywords. The first one to help our active duty members or their spouses prepare for life as a veteran is going to be keyword military transition assistance. Pretty straightforward. Next, you have veteran employment for employment assistance. So normally we'll look up employment somewhere else, but there are specific listings that will come up for veteran employment if that's who you're working with. And lastly, we'll talk about this a bit more later on, but you also have a keyword called military family support. And military family support, if you get a chance to look at it, is really interesting, the referrals that come up, because they're very specific to veterans, but it can include education, occupation assistance, and a whole host of others that are really specific. So anything that comes up under military family support, if it's a good fit for your caller, is definitely a good referral. Next is about our Virginia cemeteries. And our cemeteries are set just for our veterans for their burial and their perpetual care, like the service given to the site itself. This is for veterans, any of their eligible dependents, like a legal spouse, or any unmarried minor children could be buried within these Virginia cemeteries. There currently are 3 veteran cemeteries that provide that final resting place. You can see those listed on the screen. They're spread out throughout the state. So if an individual calls because they need help with burial assistance, cremation assistance, or even just to pre-register to get into the cemetery system, you can use that keyword burial assistance and find the listing to give them the information for Veterans Affairs. That's who would handle that. And again, this is for the veteran themselves, their spouse, or any unmarried minor children. Next then is our care centers for Virginia. And these care centers are called the state veterans homes. They provide affordable long-term nursing care. So think about like a nursing home. It's not free for veterans, unfortunately, but it is dedicated specifically to them and is affordable. So right now we have a care center in Richmond and a care center in Roanoke. These are high-end facilities that are there to provide like a clean way of life for individuals that treats them with the dignity that they've earned through their service. So this takes on any of our eligible veterans. To be clear, these centers are not the same thing as the VA medical center, although they're usually located pretty close to those same VA centers. So just make sure you're understanding that these state veterans homes are for nursing home care and the VA is for inpatient and outpatient medical services. So like we said, we have one that's in Salem, Roanoke, Virginia, that hosts up to 240 veterans. And then the other facility that's located in Richmond has 200 single occupancy rooms. Now, for the future, there are care centers being built right now in Virginia Beach and Fauquier County, but they're still under construction. They will be opening sometime in 2022. So if the caller is looking for long-term nursing facilities, inpatient services, outpatient services, the keywords you're going to want to use to start is nursing facilities. This doesn't specifically say veteran, but you will be able to find whatever the closest veterans care center is for that nursing care. And remember, this is long-term, so they're going to be staying there and being cared for there. If it is just something medical that needs to be taken care of, the keyword you want to use is veteran outpatient clinics. And this will help you find that actual VA medical center for this inpatient or outpatient care. So keep in mind, they're not the same thing, but they are located basically right next to each other. Next is our Virginia War Memorial. Now, this war memorial that we have is kind of this monument to the memory of Virginia's men and women who served and fought for our country. And the war memorial works anywhere from World War II to the present. They do a lot of work with outreach as well as having on-site programs where they do presentations, educational videos. And this is actually a war memorial that's very highly seen throughout the United States in terms of the way that they present the information and provide education around it. So for anyone that's looking for information regarding the war memorial, your keyword is very straightforward. Just look for memorials/monuments. And then when you see the Virginia War Memorial listing, just provide that to them. Last thing we're going to talk about with these programs is the Virginia Veteran and Family Support, sometimes VDVS. Virginia Veterans and Family Support looks at these challenges that military members and their families have when it comes to the mental transition, any post-traumatic stress, brain injuries, behavioral health issues, physical injuries. Think of it like it's something that just takes care of the person. So if you think about benefit services as being the thing that takes care of the individual, pursuing what their benefits are and making sure that they get taken care of, the Virginia Veteran and Family Support Program is actually going a little bit deeper, a little more intimate with that individual and finding out what's wrong and what they need help with. Now, VDVS has 4 different regional offices to provide service, but they actually really work with a lot of other agencies. So it's not just that you contact these offices and that's it. There's a broader reach here available. So what Veterans Family Support does is coordinate with our community service boards or CSBs for behavioral health, rehabilitative and supportive services. They also work with treatment services for post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injuries. They do connect directly with the VA as well as work with those benefit services like we discussed a second ago, as well as our education, transition, and employment. So remember, these programs are all under the VDVS heading, so obviously they're going to work together and help an individual out. They also work with other public and private agencies as well. In addition to this, they do also work through personalized care coordination for assessments of individual and family needs. They do caregiver training for individuals who are perhaps taking care of their veteran. There's also peer support services, family support services, as well as peer groups and family groups. One thing that we often forget is that they do also help with homeless and housing services, as well as criminal justice and reentry services. And lastly, of course, the Veterans Family Services is going to do some outreach and some education so that the rest of the individuals in the state understand what they're here for. So if your caller needs help with someone that's been touched by a stress-related injury or traumatic brain injury, that's pretty obvious that we want to go to them. But also just educational support, employment assistance, job training certifications, which is what we talked about with our benefit services and the education transition and employment. So the keyword here, just as it was before, is military family support. And if you're looking at this, you would want to find the referral that is this regional office for VDVS. So you could also, when you're looking for these needs, look at the other results that come up in the listing and see what's there that's specialized, specific to the individual that you're talking to. I would say anytime that you're on the after hours line and you're helping a veteran or a family member, skimming the listings that are coming up for military family support in their area is not a bad idea. Now, some resources of note that tend to line up with the calls that we normally get is going to be regarding domestic violence and military sexual trauma. You're also going to find referrals for this specific need under the keyword military family support. And that, just to be clear, that these regional offices do help with that. So there may be domestic violence information that comes up with keyword domestic violence, but this is specific to military family support, and it's a service they have available to them that others do not. So I definitely recommend looking for that regional office there. Now, when it comes to this type of violence or trauma, there's not a lot of restrictions in place. They can be married or not married, any type of sexual orientation, they can be living together or not. Domestic violence is domestic violence. So they also can receive free counseling at the VA for any mental or physical health conditions that are related to that trauma, whether they've reported it or not. Next is housing and homelessness. A lot of times we look for our central point of entry, but specifically for veterans, if you search homeless services, you're going to find the phone number for the 24-hour Veterans Homeless Hotline. And this is actually going to connect veterans and their families to the VA's own homeless point of contact, or what we would call homeless point of entry. But it's specific to a VA facility. So definitely check that if you're speaking to a veteran that is experiencing homelessness or is in fear of becoming homeless. This hotline is available 24 hours specifically for veterans. Please utilize that. Another resource that's available specific to veterans is a crisis hotline. Again, this is also a 24-hour line, but they also have access to chat or text. So if a veteran or their family member or even a friend needs to talk to the VA, they can call this crisis hotline. But keep in mind, crisis is not the same thing as an urgent mental health situation. So if they need somebody to talk to, absolutely the crisis hotline is the way to go. But if it's urgent, remember to direct them to their local CSB, who should have a 24-hour line, or instruct them to call 911 or give them the suicide prevention hotline. Lastly, there's another resource that we don't really pay much attention to that can help with financial assistance, transitional and permanent housing, as well as caregiver support. And this is also found under military family support as the keyword. So when you type that in, search for the listing that's called Operation Homefront. They actually have programs where they help with financial assistance for small needs, such as maybe utilities or rent, but they also help with transitional housing programs. They also do permanent housing for veterans that are getting ready to come out of the military to go from active duty to becoming a veteran, as well as caregiver supports for those that have been injured. Keep in mind, you're going to want to read the description in Get Care to make sure that what they're serving is still available. But all of those things could be utilized if the caller you're talking to is a veteran or a family member. Operation Homefront also provides recurring family support so that they really help work with this whole military family to get through these small challenges that come up without turning it into something larger. So what do we do when we're handling the after hours calls? The first thing that we do is go ahead and look for any of these veterans programs that are available. Look for your veterans homeless hotline or your benefits assistance, or look at employment for them. Absolutely check military family support. See what's available specifically for them and their need. After that, go ahead and give them any other referrals you would normally give for that need if they weren't a member of military and they weren't a veteran or a family member. So go through and look for rental assistance, utility assistance, healthcare, employment, anything like that. Basically, anybody that you talk to that's coming in on the VDVS after hours line is an opportunity to give them even more programs than we normally can do throughout the day to anybody else. And it's a benefit for them. They've earned these services, they've earned access to these programs. So it's important for us to understand that and provide that anytime that we possibly can.